So it makes sense that we think about, are these structures working, especially these two-tier structures that were set up to help some regions grow, but some of those regions have really grown in the past 20, 25 years.
Mississauga is taking steps to exit Peel Region. Meanwhile, Markham's mayor recently asked the province to rework York Region into a new megacity, and strong mayor powers are rolled out to a larger list of municipalities across the province. It seems like there's a lot of change, or is this all business as usual? We spoke with Peter Grafe, an associate professor of political science with McMaster University in Hamilton.
Well, I think it's a bit unusual to be, reworking municipalities. On the other hand, we haven't really seen that happen since Mike Harris created all the sort of forced amalgamations in cities. So that's been a generation. So to revisit that and say, is that working, makes sense. Similarly with the strong mayor powers, we've had a way of doing things in Ontario municipal politics for decades and decades in terms of how we set up councils. It may be worth revisiting that.
When we think about the arguments for amalgamation, typically it's streamlined governments and it's cost effectiveness for the taxpayer. Now in hindsight, looking back, has that been true?
No. I mean, I think the evidence is that, yes, if you bring cities together, you maybe don't need chief fire chiefs in as many of them, or there may be ways you can reduce a few positions, but the evidence has shown that there haven't been huge savings from amalgamation. Are those bigger cities necessarily more responsive to citizens? In many cases, no.
Let's talk about the polarization. It feels like we're getting more polarized as a society. From a data standpoint, is that true?
Yeah, I think certainly if you look at surveys of citizens.
Does it feel like you have the electorate almost fighting over a ring of power? Whoever wins gets to call the shots, the other half has to live miserably.
Yeah, I think in many ways, as parties get to polarize and as their voters are more distant from one another, the kind of winner-takes-all approach to governing becomes, much more common.
In the context of a more polarized society, the idea of amalgamating and having large regional governments versus not amalgamating or de-amalgamating even, and having smaller but local governance, is there one that appears more appealing?
In some ways, when you build larger communities, in a way you're building more diverse communities. If you have several communities getting together, they may not all have the same issues that they're polarizing on, and so you have more bodies, more issues. Makes it harder for a coalition to get together and really push in that way. It makes it harder for the politicians to run on a very narrow, divisive issue.
Is there a way to slow it down or turn it around, or does it just keep getting more so?
I'm a bit pessimistic, but ways that you could slow it down would be for citizens to decide this is what they don't want this.
I also asked Peter if there are other regions that should look at grouping together or breaking off to go their separate ways.
I think it's really bespoke.
For City News, I'm David Zura.